Hi, I wanted to go over Zoom settings and maybe suggest what the best things would be for a Sunday school or other church related meeting with members. So first what you need to do is go to zoom.us, then you click sign in and you sign in with whatever method you use to create your account. Mine is through Google. So I'm signed in. And if you're already signed in, you can click whatever your profile picture is to get to this page. But what you want to do is click in the settings. So go to settings. And then what you'll see here is a bunch of default settings for a Zoom meeting. Now sometimes you can change these depending on the individual meeting. So the first one, for example, waiting room, you can turn that on and off depending on the meeting that you're setting up. But this is what the default will be. So the first setting listed is waiting room, and what this does, as described, is it places people in a waiting room that then the host has to allow them into the real meeting. So there's some trade-offs on this, and when I've asked around, a lot of people for church meetings say they just turn it off, and that does make me a little nervous because someone could join without being allowed in. But on the other hand, it is a barrier. And so I understand that, if you forget, for example, to pay attention, you can end up leaving people in the waiting room. So I'll just leave that turned on, but we'll probably turn it off for meetings where I'm setting up for a Sunday school or something like that. So the meeting passcode that you can't turn off anymore, that is now required for all meetings. However, the link will take people straight in. Also, these settings, they also aren't, you can't configure them. When I said the link will take them straight in, that's because this is turned on, embed passcode and invite link for one-click join. So if you send a link out and this is turned on, all they'll have to do is click that link and it will take them in and will add the password for them. The question came up, well, if it has a passcode and it has one-click link on, what is the point of the passcode anyway? Well, if they join without the link and they have and they type in all the information, they will need to type in a passcode. But if they use the one-click link, they'll be taken straight in. This one I would leave off. Only authenticated users can join meetings from web client, because then they will have to log into Zoom before they can join your meeting. So leave that off. This can be left off. This can be left off. End-to-end encryption. Schedule meeting. Host video. Start meetings with host video on. That's probably a good one to have on by default. So I'll turn that one on now that it's off. Participant video. Start meeting with participant videos on. Participants can change this during the meeting. I would leave that turned off, just because people should be able to decide to turn that on and be ready for the video to be turned on. Audio type. Determine how participants can join the audio portion of the meeting. We only have the option in the free version to use computer audio. That would be if you wanted to allow people to join by calling from a phone, but that requires a paid version of Zoom. Allow participants to join before host. I would definitely leave that off, because with the free version, it's a 40-minute limit unless they grant you a gift and they extend it. And so if you allow participants to join before the host, that will start the clock ticking down. So someone who joins a half an hour before it starts, for example, could end up making it so the meeting can only last 10 minutes. Enable personal meeting ID. That's not really that important. That's just if you want to have the same meeting number every time, you can leave it on, but it doesn't really matter. Use personal meeting ID when scheduling a meeting. That would mean that every time you schedule a meeting, it uses the same personal meeting ID. I don't think there's a need to do that. Mute all participants when they join a meeting. I wouldn't do that because of this thing right here. It says the host controls whether participants can unmute themselves. So I would prefer that people be able to unmute themselves, so I leave that off. This little icon in the settings will tell you which version of Zoom this setting will work with. So you'll notice, I think we're now on Zoom version 5. So what that means is that someone with an old version of Zoom, this setting will not impact. Upcoming meeting reminder, I don't have that turned on because I don't need notifications of when meetings are in Zoom. Require encryption for third-party endpoints. Okay, this is saying that if someone joins using another technology. Chat. Allow meeting participants to send a message visible to all participants. I would leave that on so people can ask questions. Prevent participants from saving chat. That one probably depends on your meeting, your audience, who's going to be in it. Is there something sensitive? So I'm going to leave that unchecked. Private chat. Allow meeting participants to send a private one-on-one message. That could be helpful if someone needs help and they just want to message the host. So I'm going to leave that turned on. Auto-saving chats. Automatically save all in-meeting chats so that hosts do not need to manually save the text. That's fine. Send notification when someone leaves or joins. So that can be really helpful, but it can also be annoying if people are coming late and there keeps being a sound. But on the other hand, if you have a waiting room, I would probably like that because you would be aware that someone had joined so that you needed to check. So maybe a compromise there is to say when the hosts and the co-hosts are the only ones who can hear that. No one can join by phone in the free version, so that doesn't apply. File transfer, that would allow you to send files over the chat. That could be useful if you were sharing like a PDF file or an image file. So I'll leave that turned on. You don't need to give feedback to Zoom. You don't need to bother people with the end of meeting feedback survey, so I'd leave those off. Always show meetings controls toolbar. I would turn that on because hopefully that means that it would show for everybody. And then if you're trying to tell somebody, go click on the breakout room icon, it will be showing and you won't have to say, okay, move your mouse and hover it over the window. They would just always see those controls and it makes it easier to tell people what to do. Show Zoom windows during screen share. That would just be if you were sharing your screen, do you want people to be able to see what you have on Zoom? You may or may not. Sometimes it's kind of distracting when people are seeing Zoom over Zoom. So I would leave that off by default. Screen sharing. Okay, this one's an important one. Allow hosts and participants to share their screen or content during meetings. Definitely turn that on. I would say all participants can share and all participants can start sharing. Because if you're the host and your teacher is a participant, you're going to want them to be able to share their screen without having to ask you to turn that on. I imagine if you have a case where you're worried that a participant might share something as a joke or to disrupt the class, you may have to turn that off. But I would start with it turned on. Disable desktop screen share for users. Again, I wouldn't turn that on. Annotation. That just allows people to draw on the screen, and it might be useful. Whiteboard, that could be useful. I would turn that on. Remote control. That allows you to give someone else the ability to control the content. That might be useful if you have a teacher who needs help sharing something, but then you want them to be able to control it. So like if you pulled up a scripture and then you said then they could control your screen. So I would leave that turned on. Nonverbal feedback. That's just some images or like a thumbs up and some other things that they can click on. Meeting reactions, I have this turned on. I don't know exactly what it does yet. I think it's only available in the newer version. But I'm interested to see, whatever you can give people the ability to do so they can react, I think is good for interaction. I admit I don't know what that exactly means, but I'm kind of curious to see. Allow removed participants to rejoin. I would say no, because if you remove somebody, that's probably because you don't want them to come back. Allow participants to rename themselves. That is important to leave turned on, because sometimes people might be joining from a sibling's device, or the parent might be joining from a child's device, and if they come in and they see that their name is their child's name, they're going to want to change it. Hide participant profile picture in a meeting. I wouldn't do that, because somebody might have set a profile picture because they want people to see it. If you're concerned that your class could do something inappropriate, I would turn that off. But or I would turn that on, because it's turning it on hides, but I would leave it how it is. In meeting advanced controls, I would leave this turned on. So this is another section. This is in meeting advanced. So report to Zoom, leave that turned on so people can report issues to Zoom. Breakout rooms. So this is off by default, and I think it's really good to turn that on, because it allows you to be able to split people into smaller groups. Well, allows the host to, I should say, which can be very useful. So I don't see any reason to leave that turned off. One thing to note, this I don't think works, allowing hosts to assign participants when scheduling. That only works if everyone has a Zoom account and is in the same organization. But you can allow people to pick a breakout room and join the ones that they want. Remote support, definitely I would leave that turned on. Closed captioning, you're probably not going to have anyone typing out closed captioning, so that can be left off. If you have a situation where somebody needs closed captioning, then I would revisit that. Far end camera control, definitely leave that off. It allows somebody else to decide which camera, view or they want, and there's no reason to have that turned on for Sunday classes. Virtual background, I would leave that turned on. People may want to not have you see what's in the room, or they just want to have a nicer background than what they might have. So why not? I would turn this off though. Allow use of videos, because that could be very distracting. Video filters, I'd leave that on. Identify guest participants in the meeting. Everyone's going to be a guest, probably, because people aren't going to be logging into Zoom, so I don't see a reason to turn that on. Auto answer group and chat. I don't even know what it does. Only show default email when sending email invites. That's not... Again, some of these are kind of obscure. Skip that one. There's no reason to have stereo audio. Show a join from your browser link. This one is important. So if you have people that are not going to install the Zoom app, they can join from the web. So when they click the link, if this is turned on, which I don't think it is turned on by default, it will allow them to join the meeting without installing anything at all. And so that is a good idea to have that turned on. Now, if people join that way, they have a limited amount of features. So for example, with breakout rooms, they can't join the breakout rooms themselves. Someone has to put them in the host has to put them in the breakout rooms. So There are some trade-offs to allowing people to join from your browser, but it's probably worth it just to make sure everyone can get in. Show a custom disclaimer. I don't think that's available in the free version. Request permission to unmute. That's not necessary for Sunday school. When attendees join meeting before host, that sends you, the host, an email saying that someone has joined. That can be useful so that if you need to let somebody know, hey, we're going to get this started in 20 minutes, just so you know, or so that people are, so that you or the host is aware that someone has joined. Also, when a meeting's canceled, that'd be good to notify people. And this is also fine to leave turned on. That just makes it so if someone is sharing from their iPhone, it won't show what other apps are showing. So that's just kind of a rundown of all the settings that you have in the free version of Zoom. Like I said, when you schedule a meeting, you're going to be able to override a lot of these things. So when I click schedule a meeting and I come down here, you'll notice that waiting room is turned on because I had that set in the defaults, but I can now turn that off if for this particular meeting I don't want to do that. So some of those settings we set are just defaults that you can then override when you schedule the meeting. Some of them, however, like the breakout rooms option and the join on the web link, those will not be something you can change at the meeting level. So anyway, that's a rundown of the way I would set things in Zoom. I'm still learning. I might change my mind on some of these things.